Stephen Colbert getting fired from The Late Show by Paramount sucks, and I want to talk about it. Now, this is not the thing I usually talk about. I usually talk about movies, comic books, stuff like that. However, to be fair, Stephen Colbert is a friend to the comic book community. Many of the late night TV show hosts are big fans of comics. Seth Meyers is a big comic guy and recently pitched characters he could be to James Gunn that, I don't think are terrible picks for him. And Stephen Colbert, he was part of the Marvel universe in the comics in 2008. He ran against Barack Obama. I said this in my Marvel presidents video. He apparently won the popular vote, but lost the electoral college, so he was not the president. And he did this as his conservative character that was also named and acted like Stephen Colbert. But like Stephen Colbert, a friend of comics, the nerd community, obviously huge Lord of the Rings fan, and beyond that, just a comic guy. And I've always been a fan of Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart and like that team. Yes, I know they're not perfect. Yes, I know some of their bits are cringy. I went to the rally back in the day. I've been to many tapings of all of those shows. Like, I am a fan. Here's how much of a fan I am. At the comic book store the other day, I saw the cover of World's Finest 40, and I bought it, even though I'm not reading World's Finest. I don't know what's going on with World's Finest, but Stephen Colbert was on the cover, and it's with Superman and Batman. I thought that was cool. So I was just like, oh, I need that. And I actually saw Stephen Colbert talking about this cover on his show. So like, I knew this was coming. That is how connected to all this I am. All right, so a couple caveats. First one, I am an amateur person who doesn't usually talk about this stuff. I feel like I have an understanding of it, and I want to explain it to you guys, but I'm not like a reporter, and I think if you find this story interesting, you should check out some of them on many of the entertainment sites, stuff like that. Other caveat, I watch all these late night shows. I watch them all on YouTube. I don't watch them as they air, but I see pretty much everything Colbert does, everything The Daily Show does, everything Seth Meyers does every day. I know that these are not incredibly popular programs. Like, compared to, I'm guessing, the NCISs. Like, there was a time when late night shows like David Letterman, Jay Leno, all those guys, those were big. People watched them. People were excited about them. Conan O'Brien, another one, obviously, who had a late night show for a while, and he obviously it was kind of complicated what happened to him. But like, we are not in that same world anymore. People do not watch late night shows as religiously. And for that reason, like, while Stephen Colbert's late night is the highest ranked of all of those shows when it comes to viewership, it's still not doing great. Now, it's hard to say whether or not the show itself is profitable. I do not know. But I will say it is a brand. Stephen Colbert did not start the show. It was started in the 90s when David Letterman moved over, and he made this his new talk show, and Stephen Colbert took it over from David Letterman a little while ago. But I think that context is important because it helps to understand kind of why this is weird. But okay, so here's the story. You have to start at the 2024 campaign, a horrible time we all hated. But at this point, who knew who was going to win? Kamala Harris does an interview on 60 Minutes, a program that airs on CBS, which is the same network that runs Late Night with Stephen Colbert. So in that interview, it was a long interview, and CBS edited this interview like they always do, because the interviews are longer than the segment that they're putting out. And in the edit, they cut an answer that Kamala Harris gave. They only know that they cut this out, by the way, because I believe in like a package that they showed earlier that day, there was a different part of that answer. Now, the answer, it doesn't really matter, but it also isn't good. Like, it's not a good answer that they fixed or something, but that doesn't matter. Either way, they did a thing that's normal that all of these shows do. If you don't believe me, try to find the clip of Fox News where they're talking to Trump and they ask him if he's going to declassify the Epstein files, and then see how that aired versus how it was actually filmed, because they edited it a little bit.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Attorney General.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
And I think, personally, they edited it to make him look less suspicious, but it's neither here nor there. But that's just a way to understand this is something that news programs do. Trump gets mad, says 60 Minutes editorialized, and they took this interview and cut it up so that they could make her look better, which, whether you agree with that they wanted to do that or not, I don't think the edit really does. But he said, oh, they're doing this, and he sued 60 Minutes. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know all about law, but I will say a lot of lawyers said that if 60 Minutes actually went to trial and like played this out, they would win because the allegations were baseless. These are the kind of things that lawyers were saying. And, you figure that's what they would do then, because they don't want to just give money to everybody that sues them for defamation, especially if they don't have to do that. But CBS is in a weird place because CBS is owned by Paramount. Paramount is trying to merge with a different company called Skydance. They're both media companies. They're merging for whatever reason, money reason. They want to, everything has to be consolidated under 5 companies. Every industry needs to be these weird little, amalgamations of 50 companies, but this was one of them. And these guys were going to merge. But to do that, they would have to go through the FCC, which usually runs independently. Like back in the day, the president would not intervene in a merger like this. But now, because of Trump, it seems like Paramount's worried that he might. So for that reason, and also, to be fair, because going through the process of a lawsuit like this with lawyers and the time may be worth more than what it would cost to settle. So in that case, a lot of companies will settle. But like for whatever reason, we don't know exactly why, CBS settled with Trump and they paid him $16 million. Now, this is not like, by the way, the first time we've heard of some weird stuff going on there. One of the high-level creatives at 60 Minutes retired after, editorial control was kind of being wrestled away from them. Especially there was a focus on maybe putting out less material that was critical of Trump, perhaps because Paramount was worried about angering Trump and then him interfering in the merger. Who knows? That's just, potentially what could be happening. But anyway, $16 million goes from Paramount to Trump in this settlement, which means they're not necessarily guilty, but the lawsuit is over. Stephen Colbert, on his show, talks about political news, loves to talk about Paramount, positive and negative. He loves to make jokes about, and they all do this too, like Seth Meyers loves to take shots at NBC, John Oliver loves to take shots at HBO. It's part of the fun. And Colbert, while this is going on, is on vacation because it's summer and the late night show hosts tend to take a couple weeks off. He comes back and talks about it, calls the $16 million settlement a big fat bribe. And he's mad because he's like, CBS, Paramount, you got money. You could fight this. You would win this. And you can't just let people sue you for things that are baseless and then just settle, because everybody's going to do that. Trump will do it. Other people will do it that have power. And maybe Trump will do it again. Why wouldn't he? If he just got some money, why wouldn't he get more money? Hey, everybody. Post-production Nando here. Just want to jump in with a little note. Pretty much for the rest of the video, I am going to switch between calling the Stephen Colbert Late Night Show, The Late Show, and Late Night. That is just because I have a hard time remembering which is which, but for the record, I'm mostly talking about The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. That is the CBS one. Late Night with Seth Meyers is on NBC. It is the other one that I watch a lot. Just a little clarification, because if I didn't, there'd be a lot of comments. I'm sure I'll still get a million comments. But anyway, enjoy the rest of the thing. So Colbert is upset. And then today, Paramount, CBS, announced that they are canceling Late Night with Stephen Colbert and Late Night in general. So this show is not going to continue. They are not going to find a new host. They didn't just fire Stephen Colbert. They ended the whole show. And the vibe I got from the little speech that Colbert did on his show today was like he wasn't psyched about this. It didn't feel like listen, what happens. We had a great time, but all good things must come to an end. It felt very much like, yeah, it sucks that they did this, and yeah, I wish they didn't do it because it's a bad thing to do, but that they did do it. Like, so one of the things he said was that he wished they could have continued the show with a different host, but Paramount just didn't want to do that either. So this was pretty abrupt, came out of nowhere, and now people are upset. Now you may say, Nando, earlier in the thing, you said that late night shows aren't doing super well. That's true. Again, I'm not able to analyze the financials. I'm not that kind of YouTuber, but I do know it's been trending down. Everybody kind of knows that. So the idea that Paramount would just end this show because it is not making them money, not that unbelievable. In fact, the idea that they would end this show before a merger, also not unbelievable. I don't know exactly why they would do this, but maybe like they want to get the company lean and take these things that maybe losing them money or not making enough money and like get rid of them. So it's just nothing but hits, all Young Sheldon all the way down, whatever the hell people watch on that network. NCIS, I think, is one of those. I don't know. Those would be legitimate things that Paramount could do. But because of how they've acted with the 60 Minutes thing, and because Colbert was critical of them this week and then they ended the show this week, and I didn't get the indication that like he's known this for a while, this did kind of feel, just based off of his announcement, you can watch it, like it came out of nowhere. Because of all of that and the pressure of this merger, and Paramount could be worried that like Stephen Colbert, now he's mad, he's going to talk about the merger specifically and talk about Trump. That might make the merger not happen, make it more difficult. Maybe it's another lawsuit and maybe it's another baseless one, but hey, we're going to settle this one too. Like, that is something that they might be worried about. So Colbert Show's gone. And by the way, gone, it ends next year, but it is phasing out, and it is not continuing with another host, which, like I said, that's kind of unusual considering this is a brand that they have built. They have a studio. They have a staff that can run a show like this. Like, when Colbert came and took this over from Letterman, there's a lot of like rebuilding that happened, but also like you figure you don't have to fully start from scratch because you're taking on a different brand. So why wouldn't they keep it around? And like you were just saying, you said it wasn't profitable, Nando. Why would they keep it going? Well, why wouldn't they? If it seems like a brand that's kind of valuable, and it seems like it is, it's a prestige brand. It's Colbert is like up there in front of the network. He's kind of an ambassador for the network. Why not retool the show? Make it cheaper. Change something about it. Get a new host that appeals to a different market and try to maybe market it to young people. Would that work? Probably not. But like, that's what you do with something like this. If this was the first season of like a show and it wasn't really working, they canceled it, yeah, it's a bummer, but like that's what happens. But something like this, you just don't see that very often. Like, look at all the chaos that the Tonight Show went through with the Leno to Conan to Leno to Fallon transition, and like they kept the brand The Tonight Show because it is a valuable brand. This just feels fishy, and it sucks because maybe you're not a humongous fan of Stephen Colbert. I think he's really, really talented, really smart, really funny, and I think he's a great performer. But this feels like something that's happening more and more now, where a comedian is making a decision about their show, about what to cover, and because it's somewhat controversial, maybe the episode doesn't air in a certain country, or maybe the show doesn't get renewed. Like Jon Stewart used to have a show on Apple that got canceled partially because he wanted to do an episode about China, Israel, and AI. That's what, we've heard. And Apple was like, don't do that. And, China, Israel, that makes sense. Those are countries that obviously controversial. And AI is an interesting one because Apple is a technology company that has AI products. But the idea, I guess, that these comedians don't have editorial control, and especially these, when they advertise them, they get Jon Stewart, hard-hitting political comedy, commentary, all that stuff. Like, the comedians will play it down and be like, this is a dumb show, and it kind of is. But it's also not like when a show like this gets picked up, what Apple says is, Jon Stewart's making a great new show, and he's going to talk about all the hot topics of the day, as long as we want him to talk about them. Like, that's bad. And you may be saying, like I've seen people saying in comment sections, not all, but like a few, like, well, Paramount's its own company. They get to do what they want. It's a private company. They get to make decisions. They wanted to fire this person and end this show for whatever reason. So sorry, late night, but it's over. That's fair. But like, based on what's happening, feels like it's kind of the opposite of that. Potentially. Who knows if this is exactly what it is, but Paramount is worried about what the president and his administration are going to do. How he's going to punish this company. How he's going to make their lives difficult. How he's going to make this merger difficult. So they're changing their behavior to placate the administration. So this is a private company not able to produce the content they want to because of political pressure. So like that's a bad thing. If you want these companies to be able to do what they want, then this part of it stinks. And it sucks because this is not the way things used to be. Specifically, this isn't the way that like America used to work. Companies wouldn't be scared of retaliation from the president, and like they wouldn't be threatened because like the companies, they answer to shareholders, like they got to do what they got to do. I get that. I'm not like mad at them. I don't like, capitalism sucks, and there's definitely problems there. But like the real problem here is the fact that these companies feel like the safest business decision for them is to just do what the president wants or what they think would want them to do. And that's really where it gets screwy. If they say this is what you got to do, you got to fire this person, that's bad. But if they say, I don't know, make your network better, make it better in ways that are nicer to me, then that means what do they actually do? They may start just complying in advance and firing people, and it takes the blame off of the administration for asking for something specific, and then puts the blame onto the companies for like trying to placate the administration. But the administration gets to say, we didn't tell them to fire this guy. That's just what they do. They want to do it because it's better for them as a company. And that sucks. And that is also not usually how at least America works. And it sucks that it's doing that. I'm curious. I feel like we will hear more from Colbert about the situation, and there'll be maybe leaks and things like that. But after seeing what happened with 60 Minutes, the lawsuits, people leaving 60 Minutes, the settlement, and now Colbert leaving, it does suggest a trend that Paramount specifically, but something that seems to be true of other networks as well, is in a situation where they could be standing up to the administration. They are placating the administration, and doing so in a way that like ending a program that's been on the air for 30 years instead of reformatting it or trying to save it, because they're scared, because that sucks. It sucks that companies do this, and it sucks that they have to worry about the administration in this way. All I can say is like it sucks. Paramount sucks that Paramount did this. I'm not a huge Paramount guy. I don't watch Star Trek. I watched the second season of that Halo show because it was kind of good, but I hope they don't do the same thing to The Daily Show, which I think is also like a good, entertaining, smart show. Again, not perfect, but I find these shows entertaining, and I also think like they are a part of TV history. The late night show is like a format the same way that like sitcoms are a format, and it would be weird if a company that had a sitcom that was somewhat popular just stop making all of their sitcoms out of nowhere. And that's what this feels like. And it's like we're losing something that I think could be fixed, could be saved, but it's not worth it to them, I guess, because of the administration. That sucks. And Colbert he's cool. I think he's funny. I think seems very nice, very smart. And I've enjoyed him on the Colbert Report and on Late Night. I've watched, pretty much all of it. And we're gonna miss him because he's one of the best. And you know what else is good? Nebula. I would be surprised if you have not heard of Nebula by now. It is a subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of YouTubers created back years ago, not that long ago, but like it's been around for a little while. The goal was we wanted an ecosystem where we could exist outside of the algorithm, so we wouldn't have to cater to views and stuff like that. We'd make the videos that we wanted to make. And at the same time, we wanted to have space to make original projects with bigger budgets. And we have some really cool ones coming out. Obviously, there's stuff like Jet Lag, which is hugely popular, and I don't need to explain probably what jet lag is to you. There's also Abolish Everything, which I really enjoy. Patrick Williams has a short film coming out soon called The Dinner Plan. Maggie Mayfish has a series coming out soon called Amy's Dead End Dream House, which from what I have seen seems like a take on like a Pee-wee's Playhouse, one of those shows where like the furniture talks to you, but with a more contemporary twist. And I think Maggie and her team are really smart and funny. I cannot wait to see this show. And then one of the biggest things we have coming up is a show we're working on called Subliminal. It's an anthology. It's very dramatic in the vein of things like The Twilight Zone, but instead of being based around some funky science fiction concept or whatever, this is all just based on complicated human relationships. A bunch of cool YouTubers are writing and directing episodes of this. We have actual actors doing this work. That's gonna be really exciting. And one of the episodes one that is going to be directed by Patrick Willems, is written by me. The episode is called Power Trip. I, again, don't want to spoil it because just when it comes out, you watch it and you'll love it. This is really my first like Nebula original thing. So I'm very excited about it. I've been writing it for a little while. If you're like, why is some of the video frequency slowed down a little bit? But I'm done with it. So that's the best part. I've written it. So there it is. It's there. So it is up to Patrick and our production team to put this episode together. I think it is going to be really cool. And you're going to be able to watch that exclusively on Nebula. You can also watch all of my videos early and ad-free, including Nando Cut videos, which go up maybe a couple hours before they go live on YouTube. But still, that's early. You're seeing it before anybody else. And a yearly subscription to Nebula is a steal already at $5 a month or $60 a year. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/The Nando Cut, name of the channel, you can get a year of Nebula for just $3 a month. It is a great deal. It's a great way to see all my videos. There's a bunch of other creators on Nebula who you definitely already like, and there's a bunch of others that we're bringing on as, time goes on. Who knows when you're watching this video? Check out Nebula. There will be people that are not on there when I'm recording it, and we have some pretty cool ones, and I'm excited they're going to be part of Nebula, and we're always growing. So anyway, that is my pitch for Nebula. So watch my videos early and ad-free, and watch Subliminal, specifically my episode and all the other episodes, when they are released in the future. I do not know exactly when, but we're working on it right now, and I'm sure we will have more updates. So follow me on, Twitter and all that stuff. I'm Nando V Movies all over the internet, and you will see updates from me. That's all I got. Stay safe. See you next time.